Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I think at least 3 of you have asked for this video over the last 3 years, so here it is. I unboxed this one kind of live. It was one of the first unboxing videos that I had made, and quite breathlessly and excitedly as I remember it, about 3 years ago when I got it. And it's appeared in a kind of cameo capacity in numerous State of the Collection videos and Loom Wars episodes since then, but I haven't made a proper dedicated review video, so I thought that's what I would do today. My journey so far, and it has been a bit of a journey with this, the Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra Master Coaxial Chronometer 38.5mm, aka my engagement watch. This was the watch that my girlfriend, who's now my wife, bought me the day she became my fiancée, if you see what I mean. Now, while we're on that subject, gentlemen, let's start a tradition. The tradition of the diamond engagement ring was pretty much a fabrication by De Beers in the 1940s. I think in the 2020s, given the equality that is everywhere these days, we should start a tradition of our own. If a lady wants our hand in marriage, she has to put a nice watch on our wrist first. Ladies, what do you think of that one? Would you be happy to secure a man with a watch? Would indeed you prefer a watch to the diamond ring that is currently the tradition? Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Let's start the campaign. It starts here. So I thought today I would present a bit of a narrative. I'm just going to sit here and talk to the camera. I'm going to pop up pictures as appropriate. I'm also going to put in plenty of video footage as well over the course of this review. It is a stunning, stunning looking watch, this Aqua Terra. I hope that my videography skills can do this one justice. I'll also pop in a Loom video, there'll be a time grapher report, etc, etc. Some of the usual review component good stuff. But like I said, I have been on a bit of a journey, so in the spirit of a 3-year long-term report, I thought I'd split that journey into 3 different sections. The bittersweet beginning, the uncomfortable middle, and the happy ending. Always nice to have a happy ending, isn't it? So I recommend you maybe crank the speed up to 1.25, get yourself a cup of tea and a bicky, and settle in. This one goes back to June 2017, and it probably goes back a couple of decades further than that. I have always been a fan of Omega watches, and indeed I've had a couple of Omegas long term. Most of the 90s were spent with this little 34mm Omega Seamaster dressy piece on the Jubilee bracelet, quartz of course, still ticking away nicely on my wrist. Most of the noughties, the 2000s, were spent with this Omega Seamaster 200 pre-bond on my wrist. I remember buying it in fantastic condition for £250 in Glasgow and then proceeding to beat it to death over the next decade. If that one's ever going to tick again, it probably needs a new movement. So Omega, like Casio, really 2 of my favourite watch brands, and probably the brand that I've worn most over the years. Now, my wife and I both work at Sydney Opera House. That's where we met, and indeed that's where we got married a couple of years ago. And we work with a friend and colleague called Keng. Now, Keng is one of my closest horror bros, my watch buddies. He and I have encouraged each other to buy too many watches over the years, and he's got a fantastic collection. He's got a vintage Datejust Rolex, he's got a Speedmaster, he's got a Black Bay 58, he's got a Seiko Saab, and he's got a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And I got this slightly mysterious message from him in June 17. He was in a jeweller's with 2 Omega Aqua Terras on his wrist. Now, the Aqua Terra is a watch that I had expressed a fondness for on more than one occasion to him. He said in his message, "Hey Jody, what do you prefer? Do you like the black dial, the blue dial, the big one, or the small one?" Now, I could smell the fish from the message. I knew what was going on. He had bought an Omega Speedmaster from the same jeweller 3 days before, hence the reason I asked, how big was your tax return? I suspected my girlfriend was sitting not too far away when that photo was taken. And you saw my response. Definitely the black one, definitely the smaller, the 38.5, but definitely not that model. I'd be looking for old stock because I can't handle polished mid-links. I have long been an admirer of the Aqua Terra. It really is the kind of go anywhere, do anything watch. Equally at home, at the theatre and the opera, and really any circumstance, any kind of dressy environment you could put to it, but capable of jumping in the sea or the swimming pool or whatever. It's the surf and turf. It really is the kind of perfect one watch. but it's become more and more dressy as the years, as the model series has progressed. And not long before 2017, perhaps it was for that model year, they added polished mid-links, and I just can't handle polished mid-links. Our conversation went back and forth from there. I realised what was going on, I realised how much money these watches cost, and I tried to steer her via him into a Black Bay 36, a quartz Aqua Terra, something that wasn't going to cost quite so much money, being the good Scotsman that I am. But anyway, the conversation fizzled out, and the big day, the day of our engagement, appeared the next month, July 2017. Now actually, I'm quite proud of myself. I delivered the proposal that was indeed romantic, magical, whimsical, effortful and spontaneous. All the things that I was told that it had to be. I had organised for a fake shift at work to be put on the roster. Then I said, you're not going to work today, we're going to the Hunter Valley. We drove up there, had a lovely lunch, and then I'd organised a cheese factory. My wife loves cheese. I'd organised a kind of private cheese tasting and proposal and flowers and all the rest of it. And true enough, I popped the question and gave her a small box with a little shiny ring in it, and before she said yes, she gave me a truly enormous box. And I do mean a truly enormous box containing an Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra. She said yes, I said yes, a truly cheesy proposal. I brought the watch back to Sydney, I unboxed it on video. It's a stunning, stunning watch. I mean, not surprisingly, you're paying good money for these Omegas. Beautifully finished, you know, remarkable looking dial and hands, quite blingy, quite eye-catching by design, but it had those polished mid-links. I went to the jeweller, got them to size it up for me lest I scratch it, and I did start to wear it, inevitably getting scratches on those polished mid-links. Now, I live in Sydney, as most of you probably know. If you don't know, I live in Sydney. Sydney's quite sunny, and I drive a manual car, or at least I did at the time. My last two cars were manual, or stick shift as you North Americans call it, and I remember driving one day with the Aqua Terra on my wrist and changing gears, and it was like a glitter ball in my car. The ceiling was just awash with the light reflection off of those polished mid-links, and I actually took the watch off, put it in my glove box, and I thought, oh, this can't continue. What has gone wrong here? So I tried workaround solutions. Straps. You don't have to have the watch on a bracelet. Obviously, indeed, Omega sell various strap options, but they're bloody expensive. The point of buying a luxury watch is like a luxury car. You pay a fortune for parts and service thereafter. I think the Omega leather straps for these 19mm lug width, thanks for that Omega, are about 450 Aussie dollars. So being the good Scotsman that I am, again, I tried another workaround. I bought a Hirsch 1918, and I knew you could buy the little buckles separately from Omega, so I did for the Speedmaster, and I bought an 18mm one. Wore that for a while, wasn't all that comfortable with it. I'm a bracelet guy after all. I tried a kind of knockoff sailcloth deployant thing, wasn't really all that enamoured with that either. I even bought a collar reb. Now that one had a 16mm buckle, so I had to buy another one of those Speedmaster buckles. My wife said this one looked like a piece of dried up dog poo on my wrist, so that one didn't last the course either. So I spent a couple of months kind of unsatisfactorily chasing a solution to my problems, when there was one obvious one: get the bracelet refinished. Now that's the bittersweet start of the story ending and the uncomfortable middle of the story beginning. I took the watch to a local jeweller in Neutral Bay in Sydney, who shall remain nameless because he hacked it. I paid $110, came back a couple of days later, and it wasn't awful, but it wasn't fantastic at all. And I thought, shit, Jody, this is the nightmare scenario. You've buggered around with a really expensive watch and you don't like the end result. I'll leave a picture up here, I'll zoom in. It wasn't even straight, the brushing wasn't even straight, especially on the end links. I don't know what he'd done, he didn't do a good job though, that's for sure. However, it did begin the kind of rehabilitation process for me and the Aqua Terra, and I wore it more even on that slightly mangled bracelet than I had been on the leather strap or the high polished centre-link bracelet. But I still wasn't entirely uncomfortable with a watch that really is mine for life and I should be entirely comfortable with. Enter another Omega, the Omega Seamaster 300 that I picked up around the middle of last year. Now this watch had just been fully restored and the condition was incredible. It was beautifully finished, and it had been refinished by a guy called Michael who works in the Dimmicks building in Sydney. And I thought, why don't you take your slightly mangled bracelet, thanks Neutral Bay Jeweller, to Michael and pay him another $80 to refinish it. He refinished it. It's not factory, but it's a damn sight better than it was, and it actually looks like it belongs on the Omega. And here's where the happy ending for me begins. That was about a year ago, and I have worn the watch twice as much in the last year as I wore it in the first 2 years of ownership. I adore it, and now it's the watch that I truly wanted. Now it is a keeper, it's a lifer, it's everything I could ask for, and it's a stunning, stunning thing to look at when it's on my wrist. Now, as you can see from the video footage here, it is a stunning watch. As you can also see, it has picked up a number of scuffs and scratches over the last 3 years. I'm sure some of you are recoiling in horror. I'm okay with that. I don't have that sixth sense that avoids kitchen counters and doorknobs, I'm afraid, so watches in my company always get a bit scuffed and scratched, but I'm okay. It's all part of the character, it's all part of the charm of the watch, and this one isn't going anywhere. It's a lifer, it's a keeper. So the more scratches, the merrier as far as I'm concerned. In some ways, the more scratched the case and bracelet become, the more that dial just pops. Which brings me on to the 3 things that I think are fantastic and the 3 things that I think aren't quite so fantastic. And I'll start with the negatives, starting with the butterfly clasp arrangement. I have always worn watches that have had proper diver style clasps and therefore had micro adjust built in. So it did take some getting used to this. The best you're going to do is a half link or a full link. You can kind of fiddle around with those to try and get the right fit, but as a consequence I wear this one low and I wear this one loose. It doesn't quite have the versatility that you get if it had a diver's clasp. I appreciate it is a bit neater on wrist though. As a consequence, the second thing that I wasn't all that impressed with is the fact that that crown is a little bit sharper than I think it should be. If you're wearing a watch low, if you're wearing a watch loose, it is going to drift down your arm, and if the crown is sharp, you're going to know about it. Not something that is a long-term problem, but it was something I had to get used to initially. A few kind of sharp edges on the underside of it as well, but Aqua Terras always have had that slightly angular look. The third thing is the movement. Now this is a chronometer, it says as much on the dial, but I've never felt that it ran quite within cost specs. Omega apparently test these and regulate them to run within -4 to +4. I did various kind of watch check apps on this one when I first got it, and I got it running at +7, +8, not quite the +6 that it would require to be chronometer certified legitimately. Now on the time grapher here, you can see this one runs at 25,200 vibrations per hour, so 7 ticks per second, 3.5 Hertz. That helps with the power reserve. It's got a great 70-hour power reserve, but you don't quite get the smooth high beat sweep that you would from a 28,800. When I change the positions, you can see it blowing slightly out of cost range on a couple of them. Healthy amplitude, you know, not much beat error. It is a 3-year-old watch after all, but I always felt it ran a bit quick. It's a 5-year warranty on these watches, so I've got 2 more years to take it back. I probably will do so before too long, before I forget. I'm stuck with it. 3 things I like. It's an Omega, it's not a Rolex, it's not anything else. I guess Omega's a brand that I've had a real connection with over the years, so I'm delighted that a really important watch for me is from a really important brand to me, and one that I have been wearing on and off for 25 years or more, and hopefully will wear for 25 years more to come. The second thing I really like, and I alluded to it earlier on, is the 70-hour power reserve. I found that really useful on this watch. I've talked about this before. If you have a bit of a collection, a bit of a rotation, and they're all automatics, there's quite often a scenario where you look into your watch box and they've all got different times and different dates on them. The Omega at least is the last one running, so there is always a chance that it's still running and I can pick it back up and put it on. If I'm wearing it Monday to Friday but put it back in the box, it is still ticking on a Monday morning for me, which I think is great. And the third thing I like, probably the biggest attractant that I have towards this watch, is the dial and the handset. It is just perfection. It really, really is beautiful. I had borrowed Mr. X's Rolex Explorer, a watch which I've long admired as well, and I gave it back to him and I put this one back on and was just kind of blown away by how good it looked anti-reflective coating and heaps of it. It comes up blue on camera. A lot of the time you can't even see the anti-reflective coating at all. You can't even see the fact there's a piece of glass on here. It's just straight onto that dial, and the dial is a stunner. I know they've updated this model a couple of times since my wife bought me this one. They moved the date round to 6 o'clock and they've changed the orientation of the stripes from vertical to horizontal. I like the date at 6, I think that's a good thing. Vertical, horizontal, I don't really think it makes a difference. What they haven't changed is fundamentally how beautiful the dial and the handset is. The handset is gorgeous. There's an adequate amount of lume on them as well. I presume it's BGW9, it's got that kind of blue glow. Perhaps there could have been a bit more definition between the hands. The minute hand looks a lot like the second hand, as you can kind of see here. Then when I speed it up, it does a not bad job considering it's not an out and out dive watch. Again, it's that surf and turf, it's that Gara, that everyday wear, and the lume certainly helps cover that particular point well. So there you have it, my 3-year journey so far with this gorgeous Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra. It has been a bit of a journey. Started on a high, there were a couple of wobbles, and we're back on a high again, and long may that high continue. A big thank you to the beautiful, the wonderful, the generous Mrs JOMW. Not that she watches any of my videos anyway, but thank you to you, my love. I know that you wanted to buy me something. It was important for you to buy me something of equal value and significance, not just monetary value, but a kind of emotional value as the engagement ring that I bought you. So thank you, and I love it. I really do love it. And I forgive the comment about the piece of dried up dog poo. And you, how are you? How was your cup of tea? I assume you went through a couple of biscuits over the course of this one as well. Thank you for watching. I will see you in a future video.